Welcome to our discussion with John Summers. For those who don't know me, I am Germán Yunes, the CEO of Geometry Latin America. So happy to have Sean with us today. Sean was CMO of Mercado Libre and Mercado Pago, the fintech of Mercado Libre Group. He joined Mercado Libre in 2012. Before joining Mercado Libre, he works in the United Kingdom as a marketing director of Twinings, the traditional English tea brand, and held various roles at PepsiCo in Argentina, Mexico, and also in the United Kingdom. He last served as marketing director of Quaker and Tropicana. So, Sean, great to have you. Let's go direct into the talk. We are so proud about having a company in Latin America as Mercado Libre that did a so great job, in the last, 10 years or more. Creativity drive business and cultures in ways that change the world. You are was so busy, working at Mercado Libre. Just a few comments for the whole world about what Mercado Libre is. $3 billion of revenue. Almost 100% increase on year. Unique buyers, $45 million, 20% increase year on year. What unique ways do you use creativity to fuel such growth?
So I think historically, Mercado Libre as a group, we've been around for last year we turned 20, and we started as an e-commerce business, and over the year we innovated and created different business units. We then moved into online payments, and eventually, that online payments became a whole fintech division, and we have innovated in other areas like classifieds and advertising and shipping in general. So I would say that other than innovation, Mercado Libre historically, when it comes to marketing, we've been very focused on performance marketing. We were actually the first client that Google had in Latin America many, many years ago. We even knocked on their door, one day in California and told them about Latin America, even before they had a presence. So I think that historically, Mercado Libre, the e-commerce business, was built very much on performance marketing. Very much focused on how do we optimize our presence in Google. So I would say creativity didn't play a significant role in the early days of Mercado Libre. And at that time, we were probably one of the very few e-commerce players in the region. So we had a lot of time to experiment with the platform and learn how to use technology to increase our performance there. I think that as the brand grew, and at the beginning, as you can imagine, we were a niche business. Just imagine doing e-commerce in Latin America back in 2002, or even 2007 to 2008. I think as we grew and the brand and started growing together with the category, so we've been growing very, very fast for many years, and expanding the category. It was very clear that just being strong on doing performance marketing wouldn't be enough to establish ourselves, as the premier brand when it comes to e-commerce in the region. And that's when we started experimenting a little bit, on creative. I think that over the years, we have improved. I wouldn't say that we are best in class. We're still learning. I think a part of the philosophy in Mercado Libre is, we are lifetime learners. Constantly, trying to improve on things that we don't do very well. I think that when I look particularly over the last 3 years, when the brand has really, established itself, in terms of awareness and preference and consideration in general, I think that, that's when we started doing some of the best creative work. They are trying to complement what we were already doing. Even in our first communications, it was very much as any typical retailer talking about the three main variables that you think when you think about retail. Price, selection, and convenience. We've been drumming that beat for a while, and not necessarily in a lot of creative ways, but at some point in time, other competitors are sort of putting very similar levers, and that's when we realized that other than efficiency, we needed creative to really superpower the brand. And I think that over the last 3 years, the combination of that focus on performance and starting to improve on the quality of our creative work I think that's when we've seen the brand explode in a sense in terms of growth, but also in terms of consideration and how consumers perceive us.
That's great, and really is a very honest comment from your side that the way that Mercado Libre started and the way that changed on the going more on the creative side. I just imagine was tough was your previous year or your beginning years at Mercado Libre coming from such creative companies. You know, we at Geometry we think that creative commerce represent the future of how people experience and interact with brands. It's a combination with creativity and our end-to-end commerce approach. What are you?
Totally. If I
Yeah.
can add, Germán, if I can add, think about, so our most developed business is e-commerce, but we're going through a similar curve in fintech. And if I think about fintech, where there's a lot of innovation, and we have, our other brand, which is Mercado Pago, it's very similar. Everyone is innovating in fintech. Everyone has sort of, the right features, and they are improving the performance of those features, be it a digital account or a digital wallet or a consumer credit or a merchant credit. So, lots of the players in the market are going to have very similar functionalities, okay?
Yeah.
And as we think and as we start investing on creating the brand Mercado Pago, the creative aspect, how we present ourselves, all those functionalities together, how we present ourselves, in the consumer's eyes, is the thing that's gonna make the difference.
Yeah, totally agree. You just answered my second question, that is, what about to change on companies about the design of the marketing areas or the products and service and innovation. But let's talk a little bit. I don't want to make a pandemic interview, but what's pandemic accelerating your point of view on the platform side and on the brand side, on the company side?
Yeah, I think on the platform, as you can imagine, both on e-commerce and fintech, yeah, this is a global trend. Unfortunately, with people being quarantined at home, they had to change dramatically their consumption habits, and that has sort of benefited the growth of the e-commerce and fintech sort of categories. So there, we have seen a significant increase. And as the weeks pass by, I think that some of those habits are being changed. They're going to become a little bit more permanent. At the beginning, if it had been just a 2 or 3 weeks sort of quarantine, maybe it would have been just, a temporary changing habit. I think that some of these habits are going to change for good. And what it means, so that's what it means for us, as players in this digital world. What I think it means for brands and retailers in general in the traditional world, I think that this has been the final wake-up call in terms of there's a need to change, there's a need to really try to disrupt yourself, change. I always talk about change legacy as a concept. I think that one of the biggest challenges of successful brands in traditional industries is that what has made them successful until now won't necessarily make them successful, in the next stage. And not even that, probably it's going to hamper their chances of being successful, of successfully transitioning into the next phase. So I always talk about, legacy organizations, organizational structures, legacy systems, legacy procedures, legacy culture in a way. It's like, it's hard to change. And I think that this pandemic has significantly accelerated that change. And I think companies will have to, in a sense, just almost take for granted that you need to change, you need to disrupt yourself. There's no way in which you can go back to a pre-COVID world. And almost you can either resist that change, or you can say, look, it's going to be sort of a scary ride. We've been delaying these decisions for many years, but the future is already here. I think if you think of it as in a positive way, I think that this is going to be like a relief, and people are going to be willing to take those risks that they haven't been willing to take in the past. and just try to use this pandemic as the way forward. How do you make sure that your business is fit for purpose, for what's coming? And I think they're going to be, those who embrace this change and embrace sort of, the digital tools that can help in that transformation are going to be in good shape. But I think that the digital tools are a secondary factor. The most important thing is the cultural change, just embracing this, disruption and trying to lead it, as opposed to, waiting for someone to disrupt you.
That's great. One of my favorite quotes is "Nothing endorsed by change is not mine." It's from Heraclito, so I think it's from the old Greece. It's so I think that I find specifically appropriate for these times your comments. We talk a little bit about UX and about the improvement on UX, because I think the platform and the adoption of technology from people, it's going to be accelerated, and it's not going to be a way back. How much effort are you putting not only on Mercado Libre, the environment of buying and selling, also on the fintech of Mercado Pago? Let's talk a little bit about the payment and the UX and the improvement of the platform that you put in your day by day business.
Yeah, I think our approach to UX is that there's always a lot of stuff to be improved. I always say that the thing that makes Mercado Libre different as a group is that we're in constant change. I've been around for 8 years, and I think that I've seen at least 3, maybe 4 different versions of the company. And if I project the next 5 years, all I can tell you is that Mercado Libre in 3 years and in 5 years' time is going to look very different. I just don't know how different and in which direction. Okay, so I think that the approach is everything needs to be in constant evolution. We try to be very critical of ourselves, and I would say 98% of what we do can be significantly improved, or it's we're doing it very badly. Okay, and obviously changing and improving that 98% makes a lot of sense. It's just common sense. I think that what makes us different is that 2% of the stuff that we do pretty well. We just assume that we will have to disrupt it again. We will have to try to disrupt ourselves again and reinvent it. So even the stuff that works, the UX that works for us, we don't assume that it's going to work forever. We just assume actually that what made me successful last year won't necessarily make me successful next year. So I think it's a mentality of constant improvement. And it's not like, massive, big improvements based on, 8-month projects with a lot of meetings and a lot of presentations, and it's day-to-day improvements. Obviously, we define, we want to improve this flow or this specific part of the experience, and this is the long-term vision. And long-term, bear in mind that long-term for us is 3 months, 6 months, that's long-term. But then the changes start happening like every day. We do every day 5,000 product releases. That means 5,000 small improvements to the experience. None of them by itself, you would say, oh, this is a massive experience, improvements. But when you combine all of those, in a week, in a month, definitely in a quarter, as a consumer, you suddenly see, oh, well, actually the experience has improved, significantly, either on the fintech or on the e-commerce side. So I think that the approach is be clear about where you're trying to, where you want to be in 3-6 months, not in 3 years, but start today. What is the first step? What's the first change that you need to do? And the other thing is very quickly correct. Instead of getting stuck in discussions about the way forward is A, B, or C. It's we try to build very quickly consensus about what we think that the best alternative is probably B. Let's put it out there. Let's see what's the consumer feedback. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. The only big deal is let's learn fast and let's change it, even faster. So it's that constant iteration based on what learning or what worked and what didn't work. We assume that a lot of the stuff that we're going to put out there doesn't work, well the first time, and it's fine. So I think it's a culture that, and you see it in the UX in particular, it's a culture that embraces sort of this risk taking, this sort of entrepreneurial mindsets. of micro improvements on an ongoing basis.
This is massive, quality information for our team, around the world. And thank you for sharing, because when you think in a platform business, you think more in a fixed business, and it's more, it's 5,000 improvement in a daily basis to the UX, that everyone is small, and that reflects that behind that big business that is Mercado Libre, there's a lot of people working, looking at the consumers, looking at the interaction, looking at the improvement, not only for the end consumer, also for all the stores and the people that sell through Mercado Libre. And that's something that reflects, the adaptation, and the day-to-day focus on your work and the creativity. That let's talk a little bit about that campaign that you changed the logo, from a shaking hands to a elbow to elbow, a salutation or something like that in the logo to reflect the stay at home. And you put 9,000 employees going to work from home very quickly at the start of this COVID in Latin America. So talk something a little bit about the campaign and the results, and all what happened in Latin America with that.
So it's an interesting, I think it goes back to probably the kind of stuff that you can do in a company like Mercado Libre. So, we, as any company, we had our annual plan, and that, we had very specific strategies for the different businesses, and we had a communication strategy, and we were very clear about, what we wanted to communicate and what we wanted to communicate. And suddenly in our case, on the 13th of March, even before, countries in Latin America enter in quarantine, we saw what was going on in Europe, and we said, this is going to change the year, big time. And it all started with, one idea. There wasn't even a brief. Someone, my branding and communications director, wakes up on that Friday 13th, and I remember very clearly. And she says, this is going to change the world. What should we do? And the question is, what should we do as a brand? If this is going to change, what should we do for our consumers? And she sends a message, to our agency. I say, guys, what's your point of view? What can we do about it? 2 hours later, they come back and say, look, you should start talking about social distancing. People in Europe are talking about social distancing. And the best way is change your logo. Our logo, for those who don't know, it's a handshake. Okay, that's Mercado Libre. A transaction, you close a transaction with a handshake. And they came with the elbow to elbow. And that was just a social campaign. Why did you put a social campaign out there, encouraging social distancing? We don't know a lot about this pandemic, but, it seems that, the first thing that governments are asking is for social distancing. Okay, perfect. That's on a Friday. And the campaign goes out that same evening, and it's posted. And Marcos, our founder and CEO, saw it on Saturday, and he sent me a message. Sean, I love the campaign. Really right message. I think we should change the logo. On all our platforms. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. On Monday, we start changing the logo. So we didn't ask anyone. It's like, oh, it makes sense. Let's do it. So we started, and let's change even the icons in the apps. And then you have to get, to the App Store, iOS and Google Play and everything. Let's do it. And that's only a few days. And a few days later, that's on a Friday. The following week, we still don't have any quarantines in the region, but people are not really taking seriously this thing about social distancing. They don't understand it. So we come up with, what can we do? Okay, we should be creating a little bit of consciousness about this, because this is going to be serious. And that's when we come up with this idea of doing a newspaper campaign. So with the cover of all the main newspapers in Latin America, there's a phrase in Argentina that talks about, you have Monday's newspaper. Having Monday's newspapers, what are going to be the results of the races and, the football matches and everything. So use it in a smart way. So we came out on that Saturday, with a campaign in every single, top newspaper in the region saying, guys, we have the Monday's newspaper. That means, we know what's going to happen. Let's be smart about it. And that social distancing campaign, we took all the recommendations about what it meant, about, health and everything. And, and that created a lot of attention. And then we followed up with, okay, but this pandemic is going to bring a lot of pain in two areas, from a health point of view and from a food point of view, because this is going to be an economic crisis. And then we say, who are the we should do something about it. We have a big presence, a big reach. We have a payment system. Okay, let's help with donations. Let's create a movement to and we partner with the Red Cross for everything related to health, and with Banco de Alimentos, everything that has to do with delivering food to people in need on a regional basis. And we created, we donated money, and we started incentivizing our users to to donate. And then the next stage, and we took it week by week. Okay, what are we learning about this? So there wasn't okay, this is the new strategy. The new strategy we threw away. It's almost like we said, the com strategy ended on March 13th, and we created a new com strategy, and it has been like a living organism. So based on what we learn and what's the reaction from consumers, we take it to the next stage. So the next stage was after the donations campaign. What is it that we ended up doing? I'm trying to remember. So we did the donations,
Oh,
and now
you did a great change also on the slogan. You stay at home, and
sorry,
we are still
exactly.
delivering.
So
You
the
know.
next stage is people are now taking it seriously. People are now in quarantine, and they are concerned that how am I going to get my stuff? How am I going to pay services? So the next one is because we were able to operate, because we have a very robust sort of logistics network. We changed the message. It's like stay at home. We're going to deliver for you. Don't worry. We got you back. Okay, and that's how we have kept. So our com strategy changed dramatically, and now we're thinking about, okay, how are we gonna honor the heroes of this pandemic? Because we have seen some people who usually we weren't paying a lot of attention, and suddenly say people that we should be super thankful. So now the next evolution, we're thinking about how do we say thanks to this group of people. So again, at some point in time, hopefully, the campaign is going to have an end, because hopefully the pandemic is going to have an end. But I think that we have allowed ourselves to go with the flow of creating on top of what we did the previous week, and based on the feedback that we get from the community.
We I have to say thanks to Mercado Libre, because you are taking care of my family that stay at home. I have to say to you, all my personal credit cards now said Mercado Libre, Mercado Libre, Mercado Libre. So I have to say thanks to Mercado Libre and you and all your staff, to take the goods for home. Also, we use the grocery of Mercado Libre that you launched, 1 month ago or 2 months, I don't know, but you did a campaign, and I did my supermarket stuff buy on Mercado Libre, and that was amazing. Really, congratulations about that.
And there you have another category where we moved very fast. That was a very underdeveloped category in Mercado Libre. We realized that there was a need. We moved super fast. And something that you mentioned, before, we were one of the first companies, in the region to move into home office. We moved, almost 10,000 employees. It's not that we had a plan. We developed a plan like in 24, 48 hours, and that has worked super, super well. Like people, obviously, we are all suffering the quarantines, but in terms of how we all came together as a team and we've been able to deliver, I think it talks about the flexibility or the ability to adapt to whatever is happening, in the market.
Yeah. So really, thinking about Mercado Libre and the way that you also growth in the last years, or since you start, is amazing. And everyone that want to know a little bit about Mercado Libre, you can go online and analyze the evolution of the company in the last years, and the tremendous growth. So and also you make a lot of companies and new business, a lot of sellers to grow, and also with the fintech, you allow everyone to use e-payment method. But what is what take out of bed every day? What's the future? Tell a little bit about technology, platform, creativity. What's the future that you have in mind, or what way take you out of the bed?
So I think overall as a company, even though we've been around, the company has been around for 20 years, almost 2021, and I've been around for 8 years, and we have accomplished a lot, and and the journey has been fantastic. I get really excited about the future. I think about the next 5 years, and I say, wow, there's still a lot to be done. We talk about democratizing commerce and democratizing money in the region, and for us it's about giving access to a lot of on the e-commerce business. When we talk about democratizing commerce, is how do you give access to any consumer anywhere in the country to the same products and in the same conditions that someone in a capital city gets. And maybe in a more developed country you take that for granted, but in developing countries it's not the same experience that you have once. Even it's not even in the interior of the country. Leave the capital city 50 miles, 70 miles, and the experience is totally different. So we talk about making sure that anyone in every part of the country is able to access the right product with the right price, and with the same convenience. And when it comes to a seller, it's all about making sure that your market is no longer your neighborhood, but that you can expand nationally using leveraging our platform. And something very similar when we talk about democratizing money. Bear in mind that 50% of the population in Latin America don't have access to what you and I would call basic financial services. Okay, so that doesn't allow them to build a credit history and access a lot of the benefits that people in the audience have. So what really moves us, as a company, is trying to accomplish those two missions, which those are like lifelong missions. And when it comes specifically to marketing, I would say for me, it's finding that right balance, bringing the performance and the creative and trying to find the right balance, merging that. I call it, the brand formats. We come from a performance world and we feel very comfortable there. And, we keep innovating. I think we started, making our first steps on the creative side. I think in the future, as we were discussing at the beginning, for us is about finding the right, bringing both together. I know that, if you're a traditional marketeer, all the basics and all the traditional marketing, you have it, and everyone is talking about programmatic and digital, and that's like the flavor of the week, the flavor of the month. And it almost feels like, all your traditional tools and your traditional background is not relevant anymore. And I disagree with that. I think that probably you have to go all the way to the other side of the pendulum to acquire all these new skills and new tools on the digital world. But I think that the future, to have a successful future, it's about merging both. So for me, it's trying to find that right balance. Do creative work that is gonna make our brand stand out, but try to measure that not in a qualitative way, but really find leveraging technology, find the ways in which we can really have quantitative data that informs our decision making and the most real time possible. I think that that's definitely what takes me out of the bed every morning on trying to find that formula, which I don't think that I haven't seen any company around the world that has really mastered that. I talk with a lot of companies and everyone is trying to find that nirvana, but yeah, that's our biggest challenge.
What a great comment, and what a great, input and insight for all of us at Geometry and our creative and staff around the world. Really, first of all, about democratizing commerce and money and the way that people access to not to credit and also to commerce and shop and store opportunities to sell their innovation and their products. I think that's great, and thank you very much. About the merging of the two worlds, to part of the business, the more traditional marketing and advertising, and the more new one about performance data, real time. It's all what geometry is about. So really, I find extremely motivator and positive, and the insight that you are giving to us. So thank you very much. This the geometry was built for that. You know, in like we born 5 years ago from a merge of a few WPP companies, but your comments and your view of the market, you know, it's really amazing for us, and having you on the Creative Week for us is a pleasure. So thank you very much. Congratulations about what you are doing at Mercado Libre. You know, everyone of Latin America feels proud about the company and the way that, you know, you are conquering market by market in the last years. So, you know, well done, Sean, and for you and all your staff at the marketing department and all Mercado Libre company, congratulations and go on.
Thank you very much. I hope that you have a fantastic week with the team, and good luck. I think that you guys have a really important role to play for all these companies that are trying to transition from one world where they've been very successful to a new one. And if you can help them navigate and simplify, it's a really complicated world, a world of tools and a world of methodologies and approaches. I think if you can simplify that, you can really add a lot of value to your clients. So good luck in that journey.
Creativity is the way to simplify people to understand difficult things that are not so difficult. So, you know, having you at the Creative Week is, you know, a real pleasure for us. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.